Hey everybody, Father Warner here. We are in Wednesday of the first week of Advent, and our texts today at Mass are taken from Isaiah chapter 25, verse 6 to 10, and Matthew chapter 15, verse 27 to 37, 29 to 37. Now, I want to begin with two things. First, just below this video, there's a description box. If you click the link, you'll find a couple of words and the word more. Click on more. It opens out the entire description box, and you'll get links to my previous teachings for the season of Advent and for this day in particular. But the second thing I want to say is very important. You need to read the text. You need to go to Isaiah chapter 25 verses 6 to 10 and Matthew chapter 15 verse 29 to 37, because in the season of Advent the readings are linked together and it forms a theme. So if you want this to help you spiritually, please read the text. Put the video off right now, put it on pause, go back to the video having read the text, and then come back. So when you look at both the readings together, the first reading and the gospel, you'll straight away realize that they are linked to the theme of food. The first reading begins from the prophet Isaiah chapter 25. He says, "On this mountain the Lord of hosts will prepare for all peoples a banquet of rich food, a banquet of fine wines, a food rich and juicy, of fine strained wines." And then in the gospel, you hear of the feeding of the 4,000. Both the readings are linked to food. Second, in both the readings, God feels sorry for his people. He has compassion. I'll talk a little bit about the first reading. It's set. God is promising this huge banquet in the midst of the infidelities of his people. I'll do a little historical perspective as we go down with this text. But even in the gospel, it is the Lord who feels sorry. The people have been with him for 3 days. He has cured the sick, healed them of their infirmities, and they have spent 3 days with the Lord. You must understand that the Jews were very particular about the food they ate. There were certain things they were not allowed to eat. They couldn't just go down to a snack shop. I have Sherwin snacks down in nowhere. You just can't go and pick up something. No, they must have brought their little food. It ran out, but they would rather be hungry and be fed with the word of God than fill their stomachs. And the Lord recognized this. I'll talk about this also. The Lord looks at both our spiritual and our physical needs. In both the texts, you will see that God promises abundance. God is not stingy. We are stingy. God gives, and he gives in abundance. He gives the best. In the first reading, it's God who's crawling back to the end of the cellar to pull out the best wine, $10,000 a bottle of wine just for his people who have been unfaithful to him. That is the compassionate love of God, and that is why in the first reading you'll also see, ashamed of their own failing and their sin, it is the people who will turn back and say, "This is our God. This is the God who lays out a banquet for us in spite of our sinfulness. This is our God. It is in him whom we have hope for our salvation." And the fourth thing that you will see in both the readings is that the people are hungry. They are starving. In the first reading, they are literally starving. They are under siege. In the gospel, we've seen that they are with the Lord for 3 days. They must have really been hungry. Yet in both the readings, you don't directly, overtly, clearly get a sense of anybody saying, "Thank you, Lord." So, no gratitude. Yeah, they must have been grateful. We don't know. The first reading has it in some sense, but definitely it doesn't say it explicitly. And that is really the gist of our lives. We receive from God, God gives, we forget. Yeah. So, what confronts you in Advent? What confronts you really is this illogical love of God. I call it illogical. We have a kind of a logical love. It's what we would call in Hindi the word matlabi. It's you scratch my back, I scratch your back. That's what we call logical love. They gave me, so I gave them. Okay, or I give them in the hope of receiving back. God is illogical. God forgives, as we'll see in the first reading, and then God gives. He forgives and he gives. And this is the very illogical love that we are confronted with. And that's why we find it hard to accept God's love, because it doesn't match to the way we operate. Now, I want to take you through the first reading, because in order to show you this illogical love of God, You got to know what's happening in Isaiah chapter 25. Just very briefly, I've done this with you when I've done the prophet Jeremiah. So, Israel as we know it today was a united kingdom under King David, under King Solomon, and then it breaks up. The northern kingdom, consisting of 10 tribes, is going to be called Israel. Samaria is its capital. The southern kingdom, consisting of 2 tribes, will be called Judah, with Jerusalem as its capital. Now, in the year 745, there was a superpower that emerged. The superpower was called Assyria. It is north of Israel. Now, remember that the Jews have always seen superpowers. You had the Assyrians, and you had the Babylonians, and you had the Persians, and you had the Greeks, then you had the Romans. They've always been superpowers, and whether Israel likes it or not today, I think in many ways America is a superpower telling them what to do. But the Assyrians in 745 were led by a man called Tiglath-Pileser III, and he is a mighty king. And Ahaz is the king of the southern kingdom of Judah, and Ahaz goes to the Assyrian king and says, let's make an alliance, let's get together to defeat my own brothers in the north, the nation of Israel, and the city of Damascus, which was under the Syrians. Don't mistake the Syrians with the Assyrians. Isaiah is 30 years old. He goes to the king and says, please don't do this. This is complete madness. God is going to be really angry with you. But Ahaz does not listen to a 30-year-old. You know, this is the problem. For Ahaz, he cries rather to Assyria rather than to God. And we are the same. We cry to those who we think can provide our needs. But we don't go to God, who knows what is good for us. So Ahaz makes this agreement. Assyria attacks Damascus, attacks Israel, and Isaiah calls the faithful city of Jerusalem now a city of prostitutes. He says, you have moved from being a faithful city to a prostitute. What happened as a consequence? Because of this, King Ahaz now and the nation of Judah becomes a vassal nation. They are subject to the Assyrians, to their clauses, their conditions, their political environments, their political compulsions, economy, and even to faith and religion, which means that now they have to follow their gods, allow their temples to be built, and there's intermarrying, and with that comes false gods into Israel. After this comes another king in Assyria. After Tiglath-Pileser II comes Sargon II. And at this point of time, the king in the southern kingdom of Judah is Hezekiah. Judah now wants to shake off the yoke of the Assyrians. So he goes to make an alliance with the Egyptians in the south. And Isaiah says, what are you doing? I mean, why don't you rely on God? Why do you keep making alliances with other nations? We know that Hezekiah does not listen to Isaiah, and the Assyrians attack the Egyptians and all their alliances, which includes Judah, and defeats them in a battle at Ashdod. Ashdod was the city where quite recently, when Hamas attacked Israel, one of the first cities they crossed the border into Israel and attacked was Ashdod. It's a border city today between the Gaza Strip and Israel. After this came another Assyrian king called Sennacherib. And the reason why I'm going through this is just to show you the disobedience of people. So Sennacherib he's on the scene, and the king in the south, the southern kingdom, decides to make an alliance this time with Edom and Moab. We know Sennacherib attacks Jerusalem in the year 701 BC, and then there's a great miracle. God prevents the attack. God's angels actually come down and slaughter the Assyrians. But here's the point. Look at the disobedience of the people of Judah, and look at the love of God, because it is in this that you find chapter 25, God's redemption of his people. I, says God, will prepare for my people a banquet of rich foods, a banquet of fine wine. I will lift the mourning. I will lift the siege. I will lift your pain. I will lift your suffering. Why? Not because you've done something great for you, because I am a great God. So what are we going to see this week? We're going to see hope. The first week of Advent is called the week of hope. The candle that we light is also called the prophetic candle, because we hear a lot of prophecies of God. Quickly, what can we learn from today's readings? And once again, I hope you have gone through them. First, that we are called to renew our trust in God in the worst circumstances. The people of Israel, the people of Judah were in their worst circumstances. Those perhaps sitting with Jesus on the mountainside were in a state of starvation for 3 days. In their worst circumstances, what's your worst circumstance? In your worst circumstance, renew your trust in God. Just before recording, I'm supposed to be traveling to Rome next year, and there are no visa appointments till February. I know what's with the Italian consulate, but that's how they work. I have to renew my trust in God, that yes, I want to travel for the Jubilee. It's a special year, it's my silver Jubilee as a priest, but I have to renew my trust in God. That's how it goes. In your worst circumstances, you have to let God work. And I share sometimes my own struggles, because my struggles are your struggles. I mean, you could be going through worse at this point of time. For me, this is a difficult moment to accept. But the second reflection, God is generous. He's not stingy. Look at the kind of menu that God puts out for a people who don't even deserve dry bread, stale bread. He puts out a fantastic menu. God is generous, and when God is generous to us, why are we so stingy with our forgiveness, with our kindness, with our love to those who have either hurt us, or for that matter, for those who are in need? We are in the season of Advent, and soon in the season of Christmas. Christmas is a season of love. It's a season of joy. It's a season of giving. We've got to learn to be generous. Generous with our time, generous with our money, generous with everything with every resource that God has put. In many ways, I find I'm generous with my time, in so much that I have to sit down and study and keep coming to you, and now I'm stuck with a schedule. I use the word stuck in order to indicate that I have to be committed. Let's use the word committed to a schedule of so many hours of this work. We have to learn to be generous. I could say I'm on sabbatical, I need my break, let's put my legs up and enjoy. And then you keep hearing those voices that says, Father, when are you going to come back? And then God prompts your spirit to say, generosity of time. You could have financial resources. You could have perhaps a big home, and you have a room that you can accommodate somebody. Do that. Whatever the realm of generosity you can extend to, go ahead and do it. The third thing that you see is that God is concerned. He cares for his people. It's not, okay, you are sinners, go to hell. No. I think God struggles, battles. He's got his whole army, his angels, his guardian angels, everybody, to prevent us from going to hell. He doesn't want that for us. We may choose to march into hell, but God prevents us. I think he throws every resource at his power, because he's concerned, he cares, he's so concerned. Jesus was so concerned, he was so attuned to the needs of people around him. He saw they were hungry, he cared. Give them something to eat. What do you have? So you may be anxious, you may be uncertain, you may not have resources, you may have a health issue. God is concerned for you. The fourth thing I want to say is, you see that Christ has a great compassion for us, not just for our spiritual needs, but also for our physical needs. It's not that God only wants us in church and there he will take care of us. No, he takes care of us in every care of ours. So bring your littleness to Jesus. In the Gospel of today, the feeding of the 4,000, they had 5 loaves and a few fish. Few. That littleness. 5 loaves and 2 fish multiplied by the love of God gave us 7 baskets in excess after 4,000 were fed. That's called divine arithmetic. It makes no sense. It doesn't follow any logic. It doesn't follow any rules of arithmetics, but that is how God works. This, multiplied by great faith, moves mountains. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, leave your comments, everybody. Hit that share button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't done that. And for those of you who'd like to help us out with this ministry. I make an appeal, as I've been saying, in Advent and Lent twice a year. Please, you can contact me on my number via WhatsApp. It's 98202 Please don't link the fact that I've spoken of generosity to this appeal. It's an appeal I make every year, twice a year. Bye everybody. I'll see you tomorrow.